Hey everyone, welcome to the August meeting of the Royal Astronomical Society of Winnipeg Centre. It's all the mouthful. And our beginner session is going to be conducted by one of our illustrious members, Gail Wise. So I can welcome Gail to talk about Sagittarius for us. Thank you.
You want to just advance? Am I on? Sagittarius is the largest constellation in the summer sky, and he's the 15th largest constellation overall, just in case you were keeping track. Sagittarius is shown in the sky as a centaur with a body and 4 legs of a horse, and the upper part of him is a man. He's wearing a cloak and not much else if you look closely. He's drawing a bow aimed in the direction of the neighboring scorpion Scorpius. Some people saw the archer and the bow as separate constellations. This is probably because the stars of the bow and arrow are the most distinctive part of the figure. They form the asterism that we know as a teapot. Sagittarius is a constellation of Sumerian origin. He represented Pa-Bil-Sag, who was a god of war and hunting, and who was depicted as a centaur-like archer with wings. The Sumerian figure was subsequently adopted by the Greeks, but without the wings. There are no particular myths associated with him, and the Greeks were confused about his identity. Some said that this was not a centaur at all, because centaurs did not use bows. Instead, Sagittarius was supposed to be a 2-legged creature with the tail of a horse. A satyr is represented as a man with horse's ears and tail, or possibly it was a man with a goat's ears, tail, legs, and horns. The god Pan was a satyr, and he is represented by the neighboring constellation Capricornus. It was once believed that Sagittarius was Crotus. He was the son of Euphemy. Euphemy was the nurse to the Muses, who were the 9 daughters of Zeus. The Roman mythographer Hyginus added the information that the father of Crotus was Pan, agreeing that the archer was a satyr rather than a centaur. Crotus was said to have invented archery, and he often went hunting on horseback. He lived on Mount Helicon among the Muses, who enjoyed his company. They sang for him, and he applauded them loudly. The Muses requested that Zeus place him among the stars, where he is seen demonstrating the art of archery. In the sky, he's given the hind legs of a horse because he was a skilled horseman. Aratus and Ptolemy, though, both spoke of the archer as a 4-legged creature, which is how he's usually depicted. Ptolemy described him with a flowing cloak attached to his shoulders. Sagittarius was sometimes misidentified as Chiron, who was a wise and scholarly centaur. But Chiron is, in fact, represented by the other celestial centaur, the constellation Centaurus. Sagittarius is in the southern celestial hemisphere. It is one of the original 48 constellations listed by the 2nd century astronomer Ptolemy. Sagittarius is commonly represented as a centaur drawing a bow. It lies between Scorpius and Ophiuchus to the west, and Capricornus and Microscopium are on the east. We don't get to see the entire archer from our latitude, so I will mostly be talking about the portion that we can see. As we see it in the northern hemisphere, the constellation's stars form a very easily recognizable asterism known as the teapot. The stars that make up the body of the teapot are Delta, known as Cos Media, Epsilon, which is called Cos Australis, Zeta, called Askella, and Phi, which doesn't have a fancy name. Lambda is the point of the lid, Gamma, or Alnassel, is the tip of the spout, and Sigma, called Nuncke, and Tau are the handle. These stars originally formed the bow and arrow of Sagittarius. To complete the teapot image under dark skies, there is a particularly dense area of the Milky Way that can be seen rising in a northwesterly arc above the spout, looking like the steam rising from a boiling kettle. And this is called the Large Sagittarius Star Cloud. The constellation as a whole is often depicted as having the rough appearance of a stick figure archer drawing a bow, with the fainter stars providing the outline of the horse's body. Sagittarius famously points its arrow at the heart of Scorpius, which is represented by the reddish star Antares, as the two constellations race around the sky. Following the direct line formed by Delta and Gamma leads nearly directly to Antares. Appropriately, Gamma is called Al-Nasl, the Arabic word for arrowhead, and Delta is called Cause Media, meaning the center of the bow, from which the arrow sticks out. The brightest star in Sagittarius is called Cause Australis, which means the southern part of the bow. This is a triple star system, and it has the designation epsilon instead of alpha for some reason. Its magnitude is 1.85, which is roughly 7 times brighter than alpha, and alpha is too low for us to be able to see from our latitude. Nunki is our constellation's second brightest star. Its magnitude is 2.08, and this is a binary star system. Nunki is a Babylonian name, which makes Nunki the oldest star name that is still in use. Its name translates to the hamstring, or more fancily, the tendon uniting the calf of the leg to the heel, which is more descriptive. Zeta, or Escella, which is from a Latin word meaning armpit, is the third brightest star in our archery. This is another double star. The Milky Way is at its densest near Sagittarius, as this is where the galactic center is. So our Archer contains many star clusters and nebula. He actually contains 15 Messier objects. Here we have 2 well-known star clouds, both of which are very nice binocular objects. The large Sagittarius star cloud is the brightest visible region of the Milky Way. This is a part of the central bulge of our galaxy. It is seen around the thick dust of the Great Rift. The Great Rift is a dark band of interstellar dust that obscures stars. It isn't that there are no stars here, we just can't see them because they're hidden by the dust. The large Sagittarius star cloud is the innermost structure that can be observed visually. It has several embedded star clusters and superimposed dark nebula. The small Sagittarius star cloud is called M24, and its magnitude is 4.6. It's about 600 light years wide. It was discovered by our friend Charles Messier in 1764. He described it as a large nebulosity in which there are many stars of different magnitudes. This star cloud is the densest concentration of individual stars visible in binoculars, with about 1,000 stars visible with low magnification, with a field of about 2 degrees. It has been described as a virtual carpet of stellar jewels. M24 is visible to the naked eye whenever the Milky Way is visible. Inside the brightest part of M24 is NGC 6603, which is a small open cluster that's very dense. It was discovered by John Herschel on July 15, 1830. It contains about 30 stars, and it's 5 arc minutes in diameter, and its magnitude is 11. Also inside the star cloud is NGC 6567. This is a planetary nebula. Now, I'm not sure exactly where it is here, so I put a dotted line instead of a solid one. And its magnitude is 10.9, and it measures only 0.13 by 0.13 arc minutes. So it's really teeny, but you may be able to pick it out if you're using the right equipment. Sagittarius contains several well-known nebula, including M8, the Lagoon Nebula, M17, the Omega Nebula, and M20, the Trifid Nebula. The Lagoon Nebula, M8, is an emission nebula that is about 5,000 light years away. It measures 140 light years by 60 light years and to us it appears 90 by 40 arc minutes. It's very big and very bright at magnitude 6. It appears gray in telescopes visually, and photography shows a pinkish color, which is common to emission nebula. The Lagoon Nebula was first observed by John Flamsteed in 1680, and Charles Messier added it to his catalogue in 1764. The central area is also known as the Hourglass Nebula. Inside the Lagoon Nebula is an open cluster called NGC 6530. This cluster has a magnitude of 4.6 and it measures 6 by 6 arc minutes. It was discovered by the Italian astronomer Giovanni Battista Raggiorna in 1654, and it contains about 3,000 stars. M17 is also known as the Omega Nebula. It's fairly bright at magnitude 6, and it covers 12.6 by 12.6 arc minutes. It was discovered by Philippe Louis de Chazot in 1745, and Charles Messier catalogued it in 1764. It's sometimes called the Swan Nebula. You can see the shape of the swan there. The Checkmark Nebula, you can see it as a check mark. The Lobster Nebula, I don't see a lobster in there. And the Horseshoe Nebula, and I don't see a horseshoe in there either. This is considered one of the brightest and most massive star-forming regions of our galaxy. Its local geometry is similar to the Orion Nebula, except that we view this one edge-on instead of face-on. Nearby is M18, which is an open cluster which measures 6 by 6 arc minutes, and its magnitude is 6.8. It was discovered by Charles Messier in 1764. It's about 4,900 light years away from Earth, and it appears to be 32 million years old. And you can locate this one between the Sagittarius star cloud and the Omega Nebula. The Trifid Nebula, or M20, is another emission nebula that's less than 2 degrees from the lagoon. This was discovered by Charles Messier on June 6, 1764, and it's about 50 light years in diameter. The outside of the Trifid is a bluish reflection nebula, and the interior is pink, with 2 dark bands that divide it into 3 areas, or lobes. The color is created by hydrogen, which is being ionized by a triple star system formed in the intersection of the 2 dark bands. This is a very interesting object to look at through your telescope. It measures 28 by 28 arc minutes, almost as big as the full moon. The full moon is 30 arc minutes. Its magnitude is 6.3, so it's very easy to find. NGC 6559 is similar. This is a star-forming region that shows both red emission nebula and blue reflection nebula. This is also known as the Chinese Dragon Nebula, and it measures 15 by 10 arc minutes, so maybe you'll want to take a look at this one as well. We have 3 Messier globular clusters at the bottom of the teapot, like the tea leaves that have settled there. M54 was the very first globular cluster found that's outside the Milky Way. It's about 50,000 light years away. It's very easy to find right beside Stella, which is that bottom left star of the teapot, but we can't resolve individual stars. M54 measures 5.1 by 5.1 arc minutes, and its magnitude is 7.69. It was discovered by Charles Messier in 1778. Over here on the line at the bottom of the teapot, we have M70, which is another globular. This one is magnitude 9, and it measures 6.6 by 6.6 arc minutes. It was discovered by Charles Messier in 1780, and right nearby is where Comet Hale-Bopp was discovered in 1995. I think a lot of us remember Hale-Bopp. Another globular cluster is M69, which is magnitude 8.25, and it measures 5.7 by 5.7 arc minutes. So it's almost as big and bright as M54. Messier discovered M69 in 1778, probably at the same time as he saw all these other ones. And way down here, we have another globular cluster, M55. This one is really big and bright. It's 12 by 12 arc minutes, and its magnitude is 6.47. So it's twice the size of the other ones, but look how low down it is. You'll need a clear southern horizon to grab this one. And these are only available for a short time each year because they're so low. So you'll want to go out and look at them as soon as you can. One that is much easier to find is M22. This is one of the brightest globulars in the sky, and it's easily visible in binoculars. The brightest stars are 11th magnitude, and there are hundreds of stars bright enough to resolve with an 8-inch telescope. M22 was one of the first globular clusters to be discovered by a German amateur astronomer. He was named Abraham Illy, and he found it in 1665. Messier included it in his catalog in 1764. This is one of the nearest globulars to us. It's about 10,600 light years away. This is one of only 4 globulars in our galaxy that's known to contain a planetary nebula. A lot of people think that M13 is the best globular in the sky. But if you're like me, you're 5'2" and you like cats. If you're like me, you will agree that this one is just as good. So take a look at M22 and you will be equally impressed. There's another nice globular cluster, NGC 6440. This is 5.1 by 5.1 arc minutes, and its magnitude is 10. This was discovered by Sir William Herschel on May 28, 1786. A small telescope will show a fuzzy blob. The center of it is fairly concentrated, and this makes me think of M4 with that line of stars across the center. NGC 6638 is another globular. It's a little bit dimmer. Its magnitude is 9.2, and it's only 4.2 arc minutes across. But look at how close it is to the top star of the teapot. So that one will be really easy to find. Sagittarius lies in a region of the sky that points to the center of the Milky Way. Within this constellation lies a bright radio source known as Sagittarius A. This is a supermassive black hole at the heart of the galaxy. We cannot observe the black hole directly, but astronomers can observe how it affects the stars around it. It emits large amounts of radio waves, and it's made up of large dust clouds from the spiral arms of the galaxy. The Babylonians identified Sagittarius as the god Nergal, who was a centaur firing an arrow from a bow. He's usually shown with wings and 2 heads. One was a panther head, and the other was a human head. He also had a scorpion stinger raised above a horse's tail. He was sometimes called the wild bull with multicolored legs. Many of our ancient indigenous people were not familiar with teapots, so they saw this shape as an owl. Horns are believed to be a sign of powerfulness, which is why they explain that horned owls are more feared. Historically, some people even believe that these owls might not be real birds at all, but are actually shapeshifters. To other people, they were believed to be the restless spirits of the dead. Many of them traditionally link night with death and the underworld. Many owls preferred hunting time as dusk and dawn, so their reputation is further enhanced by fluted wings that cause these owls to have virtually silent flight. Also, their varied sounds, such as eerie screeches, screams, wails, barks, and hoots, may further contribute to their scary reputation. Many believe that owls have a connection to death and the afterlife. They consider owls to be either an embodied spirit of the dead or are associated with the spirit in some way. In some cases, the appearance of an owl, especially during the day, may foretell a death. One story tells of an owl creature that stands in the sky, allowing some individuals to pass on to the land of the dead while condemning others to a ghostly life roaming the earth forever. In many cultures, adults will sometimes use owls as warnings to children. They were told that they must stay inside at night and behave well. If they didn't, an owl may carry them away. Other people respect owls as a protective spirit for brave warriors. They believe that if they dream about an owl, it will become their guardian. Others believe that owls are a carrier of ancient knowledge and a bringer of deep mystical wisdom. Some believe that only the short-eared owl is a bird. They believed all other owls to be spirits of the night. With the exception of the great horned owl, warriors would often attach owl feathers to their shields or wear them on their arms. It was believed this would give them special powers, such as the ability to see in the dark and move silently. They also believed that owls may bring news to medicine men who are able to understand them. This news may tell of events happening at a faraway distance or events of the future. Some shamans believe that these owls act as spiritual consultants on sickness and punishment. When Sagittarius was first learning his archery skill from Chiron, they were walking through the forest and they came upon a tree. Upon it, archery targets were painted, and smack in the middle of each was an arrow. "Who is this incredibly fine archer?" cried Chiron. "I must find him." They continued through the forest for a few kilometers, and they met a small boy carrying a bow and arrow. Eventually, the boy admitted that it was he who shot the arrows right in the center of all the targets. Chiron asked him, "You didn't just walk up to the trees and hammer the arrows into the middle, did you?" The boy answered, "No, sir, I shot them all from 100 paces." "That is truly astonishing," said Chiron. "I must have you as one of the instructors in my school." The boy thanked him very much. "But I must ask one favor in return," Chiron continued. "You must tell me how you came to be such an outstanding archer." "Well," said the boy, "first I fire the arrow at the tree, and then I paint the target around it." Is that me? Yikes, sorry.
Okay, thanks, Gail. Now we have the formal part of our meeting starting 7:22. And I'm going to start with land acknowledgement, which is what we do at our meetings. The lands from which our members and guests are joining us are located on the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene people, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect the treaties that were made in these territories. We acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and we dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with Indigenous communities and in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. So tonight, actually, let's go back. Okay. Continue on.
Continue on as it is. Don't do anything else.
Don't need to do anything else. Okay.
It's all on file.
Oh,
If you could go
impressive, you guys. Okay, I'll get back into
back to the
the.
presentation.
I'll get back into my announcements. Okay. Just, I guess, Damon asked me for a few minutes to talk about Spruce Woods. And maybe this is a good time to have Damon talk to us. There he is. Okay, so we have the actual what's it? Not the Spruce Wood Star Party, which is coming out September 10th to 13th, but we actually have the public event, which is August 22nd. So Damon, if you could just kind of give us an update of where we're at with that.
Yeah, just to remind everybody, the public event is next weekend. We have the site by the cabin, which is where we normally book from Friday afternoon till Monday morning. The actual public event is scheduled on Saturday, with Sunday as a rain date. We closed, unfortunately, on the volunteers we can take. We normally get about 10 people showing up. We had 24 volunteers sign up this year, so we're a little cramped for space. But just to remind everybody that is volunteering, you do need a park pass this year. But you leave it for the Star Party too, so you guys will just buy it now. And yeah, that's really about it.
Okay, any questions for Damon? I guess, how many, a show of hands, how many are planning to be out there? Okay, okay, a good portion of you folks, that's great. We should have a great event out there. It's a partnership we run with the Spruce Woods Provincial Park. It is our dark sky site, our sole dark sky site at this point. We are working on another one down in southeastern Manitoba. But that is designated dark sky site by the National Royal Astronomical Society. And this is part of the partnership we have with the park, was to put on a public event in order for us to use the group use area free of charge for our members event in September, the Spruce School Star Party. So we're really appreciative of all the volunteers, and I think this is the first time in recollection that we've ever had to cap the volunteers. So that really is an important, I think, thing to acknowledge here, what a lively group we have and a very participative group. So looking forward to that August report coming back from everybody. And again, looking into September. I guess moving along, unless there's any questions, we do have, if you're a new member, you should be added to our groups lists. And one of the things we've changed in the last couple of months is the general list, which allows group communication among the members. In the past, we had kind of restricted our lists to just, you had to actually put yourself in order to participate. And we had a very limited membership in there. So this time, what we've elected to do is move everyone into the general list. And I've seen quite a bit of activity on it in the last, especially with Perseus and the partial solar eclipse. We've seen a lot of good communication coming on that general list. And if there are any questions for the members, looking for a key for something at a Glenlee, those kinds of things, that's the perfect venue for that general list. Okay, it gets to all the membership. And if you're looking for help, you're looking for something to do with club activities, then by all means use that general list. That's what we have it there for. And you can also restrict what you see out of the list. If it's bombarding your email and you don't like that, then put yourself on a group where you see the group emails only. Anyway, a digest version, that's the word I was looking for. Anyway, going ahead, I guess, thank you all for being members of our club. We're one of the, we actually are seeing growing numbers in our club and our center, which is good to see. And we're very happy with that. So I'm not gonna belabor this much longer. So what we do have next on the agenda is Scott Young. So, and I think he's coming to us electronically or remotely. So
yes. Can you hear me?
Scott. And everybody can hear him. I can hear him through here, but I can't. Hold on, Scott. We can't really hear you through. We can't hear you through the PA system or the.
Okay.
So
well, I'm just going to, yeah, here I am talking. I'm just going to keep talking until you guys get that figured out.
Oh, yeah, we found
okay,
you.
There we go.
Okay. Everybody jumped. Okay, maybe not.
Are we still?
Okay, I think we're at a reasonable volume now.
Yeah, okay. Excellent. Okay, well, hi everybody. I'm Scott, and I am reporting live from Whiteshell Provincial Park, because it is, well, as you know, the Perseid meteor shower. So I came out for that. The what's up for August into September, we just had this solar eclipse that many people had a chance to see, which is great. And as Gail mentioned, we really are, wow, I'm getting a lot of feedback in the microphone. Can you turn off the room microphone, please? Just mute the microphone there, and then I won't hear myself more than once. Nobody needs that. There we go. Okay, so as Gail was saying, Sagittarius is sort of at its last chance right now. You want to get out there and, okay, I'm still hearing myself echoing.
This one is off.
I'm still hearing you guys talking, so the microphone must be on.
How about now?
I still hear you. Now I hear crazy feedback. There we go, I think. Okay, well, if that works for you, we'll go with that. I'll try to ignore all the echoes. Okay, as Gail said, Sagittarius and the summer Milky Way, August is into September is really our last chance to get it, and you really have to get out right after sunset. Those globular clusters and nebulae and things like that really get down and set very soon after the sun goes down. So you want to go out and catch them as soon as you can. And similarly for the stuff higher up, even up into the Scutum star cloud and so on, all of these little nebulas and clusters and things like that. Beautiful part of the sky. Beautiful part of the sky, but oh my gosh. I'm gonna have to take my speakers off because I can't hear over all the feedback. Okay, it's a great part of the sky. If you've got binoculars, you can just point them pretty much anywhere in the teapot area or up, and you're gonna find some really cool stuff. Now, throughout that area, don't let Sagittarius take all the thunder. Scorpio over on the right there is pretty much lost, but Ophiuchus has a whole bunch of globular clusters. You know, when we're talking about M13 versus M22, well, every globular is pretty darn impressive, and they're actually all different. I mean, you kind of think, oh, it's a big round swarm of stars. They all look the same, but they don't. There's a lot of differences in terms of the shape, in terms of whether they're really concentrated towards the center or a more even sort of distribution of stars. By looking at different globulars, you really train your eye, because looking for those differences, it's getting your eye and your brain processing and giving it a workout, and it lets you see things a little bit better. No, I still have a huge amount of feedback. What it is you guys are doing, but maybe just don't bother. Now, if you look over towards the east, we have a completely different set of constellations. The autumn preview already, and probably the centerpiece of all of that is Saturn. So Saturn is rising in the east, you know, a little bit before midnight, and it's getting up nice and high early in the morning. I think Mike will be talking about that a little bit later. But the autumn constellations, we move away from the nebula and the globular clusters, and we move into galaxies. The Andromeda Galaxy, the Triangulum Galaxy, and a whole bunch of other little galaxies scattered in and around this part of the sky. There's great stuff to look at there as well. Saturn, though, really is the highlight. And so tomorrow night at the observing session, can you guys still hear me? I see a bunch of frantic activity on my screen. I don't really know if you can hear me or not. Okay, Mark can hear me online. That's good. I don't know if you can hear me in the meeting. I'm just going to go on. So this is the view tomorrow. Hopefully the observatory will be operational, and we can look at Saturn through the big scope. And it really is starting to get into a beautiful view. I mean, by the time we usually leave on an observing night, Saturn isn't up very high. You want to get out there like 4 in the morning right now. But it is going to be, this is the beginning of a season of Saturn that's going to be, I think, the highlight of the year observing-wise. All the other solar system activity almost is in the morning sky. Mars is starting to come up. Uranus and Neptune are sort of in the morning sky. The minor planets like Pallas and Vesta and Ceres are all in the morning sky. And Jupiter and Mercury are very deep in the morning sky. So Mercury, basically, if you want to catch it tomorrow morning, it's right next to Jupiter. You'll get a chance to see it just before sunrise. After that, it's basically gone for the month. Venus is at its greatest elongation tomorrow, and it's visible after sunset like it's been for a number of months. Mars is rising, you know, pretty early in the morning for most of us. It's still really tiny. It's not very close to us, so for telescope views, it's not really good. If you're a high-end imager of planets, you might be able to start seeing some detail right now, but it's just still a little bit small for that. Jupiter rising just before dawn. It does have an interesting event that we'll talk about in September, though, that I'll get to in a minute. And there's the other planets there that we already talked a little bit about. So tomorrow morning, If you want to get up early before the sun, this is about 5:15, I think. Jupiter and Mercury are right next to each other. And Jupiter has been moving up and to the right, and Mercury will be plunging down and to the left over the next few days. But today, they seem to be just in the right spot to be nice and close together. So if you get up early, that'll be a nice view. Tomorrow evening at the observing session, Venus and the thin crescent moon will be relatively close together. So this is a good reason to get there before sunset if you want, because both of those will be visible relatively easily, pretty much right at sunset, the moon even before that. The moon, of course, having just 3 days ago created the total solar eclipse that we saw images of from Spain. The Perseids are still not over. I mean, the peak was on the morning of the 13th, but it doesn't end immediately. There are a number of different meteors that you'll see less and less each day. But if you get up tomorrow, if you go out tonight, maybe 10 to 20 an hour before midnight, up to about 30 per hour in, the pre-dawn hours, 3, 4 in the morning. Now that's as good as almost every other meteor shower of the year, like the Delta Aquariids or the Orionids or the Leonids or stuff like that. They would love to have 30 meteors per hour. So even the Perseids, as they're fading off, are worth a watch. The day after that, the rates basically go in half. Now the thing is, whenever you see these kinds of rates, those are for the number of meteors you'd see in a very dark sky. Like that's why I'm out here in the White Shell, is to get that away from city lights view. If you're at Glenlee, cut those numbers probably in half. And if you're inside the city, you're probably not going to see any at this point. So the Perseids are done if you're not willing to travel outside of the city. But if you can get to Glenlee, you still got a chance for a reasonable number. Okay, back to our sort of morning sky. This is the sky about 2 in the morning right now. You see Saturn up near the top there. There's a bunch of, Neptune is just off to its right over there. There's a bunch of asteroids here that got turned on, but there's 2 comets in the sky. And if you're on the Facebook page, the RASC Winnipeg Center Facebook page, Wing and a number of other members have been posting all sorts of information on the 2 comets that are up there and their images and so on. One of them is comet number 10, Temple. That one is really low in the sky. It's down in Pisces Austrinus, which, to be honest, I don't even think of as the constellation we can see from Winnipeg, but it does peak up above the horizon just at this time of the year. That comet is moving farther south day by day, so it's going to disappear. If you haven't seen it already, you might be able to catch it tonight, tomorrow morning, or over the rest of the weekend, but then it's pretty much. But the other one, Comet 220 McNaught, it is an amazing comet that shouldn't be this interesting. It's out past the orbit of Mars, so it is still very far away as comets go. And normally comets don't brighten until they come into the inner solar system and they start melting. The sun's heat melts the ice, and the dust is released and creates the big tail and so on, and you have a comet. Well, this thing is bright enough to see in binoculars already. It went through an outburst, and it's right over here in the tail of Cetus the whale. And here we have a better chart here. There we go. So the yellow track is Comet McNaught's path for the next month. It really doesn't move all that far because it's sort of heading inwards towards us, but it's also quite far from the sun where its motion is slower. So it's moving very, very slowly. It doesn't even trail very much in our photographs that we take of it. The blue circle is a 7-degree circle, so that's the width of your binoculars. So literally, if you can find the tail of Cetus the whale, which is, I mean, very easy to see naked eye from Glenlee, just stick your binoculars on the one star there, and the comet's going to be in your field for the next 2 weeks there. And after that, you'll just have to scan over here towards the
So are we still going? I got kicked off there. Okay. Anyway, that's pretty much what I have for you. The main thing coming up other than that is the lunar eclipse. That's on the night of August the 27th to 28th. It's an almost total eclipse. And you see not all of the moon goes into the shadow of the earth, but almost all of it does. This will be a great sight. And it's perfectly placed for us. We have the moon rises at 8:30 and the eclipse starts 10 minutes later. And then, you know, the first hour or so of a lunar eclipse is pretty subtle, but then we get into the partial phase where that dark shadow moves across the moon. The maximum eclipse is like a quarter after 11. This would be a perfect event for a public night, I think, because all the action happens in that sort of prime time, you know, just as it's getting dark kind of time frame. And then the partial event goes till not quite 1. So that's going to be a great event to watch. It's on the 27th to 28th, and we'll wrap up the 3 big events that we've had in August, the solar eclipse, the Perseids, and the lunar eclipse. One more event that happens before our next meeting, the moon will eclipse Jupiter during the day on September the 8th. There is some information online about this, and in the Observer's Handbook, it is noted in there as an event. And it's kind of neat to see the moon and a planet right next to each other, because it really shows the distance involved. Jupiter is much, much bigger than the moon, but the moon is much, much closer, and so looks much, much larger. So that's something to watch for September the 8th. Daylight, I think it happens around 20 after 1 in the afternoon. So definitely worth checking out. And that's what I have for you today. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, folks, I'm going to talk to you today about Saturn, but first I'm going to poll the audience. So how many planetary images are here? How many people have imaged Saturn, for example? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. That's way more than I thought. That's a really good crowd. So the good news for you folks is that actually this is the prime time, in my opinion, to image Saturn, or to study visually. You don't have to do the imaging part, and not because it's closer to us like opposition. Opposition won't happen actually until October, but August is, in my opinion, is the best month for seeing additions in this province right now. Followed by September. So we got August, September. It's really good times to start looking at Saturn. So my talk today is about this particular image that I took last year, coincidentally, end of August. The seeing conditions. So the seeing conditions, I think, were a solid 6.5, 7 out of 10, I would say. And you can see Saturn is looking a little bit different than you normally would see Saturn. You know, the rings are more edge on, and so it looks a little bit odd. And what was neat about last year is that you could really focus more on the globe itself as opposed to being, you know, wowed by the rings that we usually are wowed by the rings. So that was a neat experience. Yeah. So personally. Okay, yeah, sounds great. And do I just spacebar does this ahead, or you're okay? Okay. So first thing, I just like to show you what equipment I was using to get this particular image. And I'm fortunate enough in my backyard, I do have an observatory. This is a SkyPod observatory, and in the SkyPod, I have a 12-inch Meade SCT. And it's on an Ioptron CEM70 mount. But also on the back of the scope, you notice I have a separate focuser, and that's a moonlight focuser. It's a Crayford type focuser, and it's also got a motor attached to it, because that's super critical getting fine focus. I never focus completely with with the moving mirror focuser. I only use that for only coarse focusing. And then I always switch to using electric focuser, because then you can really dial in focus very, very accurately. And I use 2 different cameras for this particular image that I'm showing you today. One color, one monochrome. There's a WO, but it really doesn't matter. There's wonderful cameras from both Clara One as well as QHY. What's not shown here is a dew shield, and which is dew management is just so critical right now, because when really good seeing conditions happen here, it's always accompanied by calm winds, and high humidity. And when you have high humidity and a big corrector plate, it's no length of time at all before that thing's going to start heating up. So you have to introduce at least a dew shield. There's times that I've actually had to use a dew shield in combination with a heater strap because I just still got to do it over 100% humidity. It's pretty daunting. So moving on here. So the first thing I like to, if you want to consider doing what I'm looking at, how I've done this, you'd want to first start with imaging an IR because when Saturn's in the position that it is now, like last year it was at 38 degrees in elevation, this year is about 42 maximum. That means it's really low in our sky. And to counteract this, you have to image an IR because IR is so effective at penetrating through atmospheric instability. It's really quite wonderful. It's actually mandatory in my opinion. So what I've done here is I used a monochrome camera in conjunction with an IR filter, and then I took a lot of video sequences in IR. The more the better, because the more you take and the more you can capture and de-rotate, the higher your signal to noise ratio becomes. Consequently, you can do a lot more with your processing. And you can see when the scene is good, how much detail can be rendered in here. There's a lot of detail. They can see it's, even though Saturn is extremely difficult to do because the contrast features are very subtle, you can see all the ring, the belt and zone definitions are done here, including its irregular southern polar cap, which is always indicative when you have good scene conditions. But this would not be possible from imaging here with just a color camera. You wouldn't get this kind of resolution. So for this image, I took a total of 27 videos, a total integration time of almost an hour. So, and it's amazing what you can do with programs like WinJupos that de-rotate these images. And a lot of people find de-rotation quite daunting. Fortunately, there's another program out there, not called WinJupos, but it's Lucky Stack Worker. And it's much more of an intuitive program when it comes to de-rotation. So if you're looking at, I highly recommend that you learn how to de-rotate, and if WinJupos isn't quite your liking, consider Lucky Stack Worker. For the images that I took here, the software that I use is quite typical in the planetary imaging world. Some of you that have done planetary imaging know this. Use fire capture for the actual video capture, auto stacker for the stacking of the individual videos into one final image, and then you take that image into Registats for wavelet processing, then into WinJupos for the de-rotation. Final processing is in Photoshop. And in absolutely no way do I ever use AI software. It is so tempting to use AI software to get that little bit of a tweak or make your image more enhanced. Downside about that, it invariably introduces artifacts, and you're just not going to do your image any justice. The planet does it when you introduce artifacts. It's just false, in my opinion. And so I use, like, the camera that I used here is the 642 monochrome camera. And I found that I really have a fondness for the IR filter. It's called a Astronomic Pro Planet 642 nanometer. I find it's just a really good sweet spot for the type of imaging that I like to do. Selecting the right kind of IR image or IR filter rather is it's kind of a more involved process, and it all depends on the size of scope you have and the kind of scene conditions you have at the time. There's a lot more to talk about that. I won't get into the weeds on this. I have 20 minutes for this talk. Now, at this point, I should mention, you capture this, you can stop right here. You don't need that color. Because adding color might give you a little bit of a bling, but it will not do anything more to enhance your details. You won't receive any more data, any more resolution, any of the belts and zones, no additional ring detail, nothing like that. You can stop right here. Matter of fact, for the most time when I submit my images for parameter collaboration websites, I stop here. I don't bother going with the color. But if you're so inclined that you like to have a little color, a little bit more bling, then choose a little bit of color. So now I switch to a color camera and I start capturing video sequences of color and de-rotate them. So with a color camera, all you really need to do is have an IR blocking filter, because otherwise you'll have a color cast to your videos in your final image. So you have to have an IR blocking filter. When the planet is low in the sky, as it typically is here, you have to integrate an atmospheric dispersion corrector, because otherwise you'll get a really chromatic aberration happening with your, thanks to the difference in the atmosphere, bending the light. It'll just have like a yellow sort of phase, a rim on the top and a purplish on the bottom. Really doesn't do the image any justice, and it just robs it of detail too. So you need to introduce an atmospheric distortion factor. And the total integration time for this was only 22 minutes, but you can notice the difference between the two. If I toggle back and forth, look at the detail on the globe itself. You notice the difference. Substantial, isn't it? Like really substantial. So that's what I said. You can stop right here. You don't have to do the color because it won't do anything more to enhance your detail. And the next bit is so moving into that. But the software is absolutely adaptive to both images. I've used exactly some software processing. Next, you combine the data. And in Photoshop, you combine the iron data with the color, and then you create a composite image. And when you see a lot of images out there, like a beautiful picture Saturn, likely they're done this way. Because unless you're in a location with really, really good scene conditions, you're just not gonna capture that kind of detail. Not with color only. You have to be usually with a good location with excellent scene and likely a larger aperture scope. So this image was taken, I said, at the end of August of last year. 2 o'clock in the morning, 38 degrees elevation, 1910.2 arc seconds, which is very respectable for a size. Again, scene conditions were in at 6 to 7 out of 10, calm winds and high humidity. Now, fast forward to this year. That's Saturn this year. Now, doesn't this look like Saturn's supposed to look? You've got the rings are tilted, you can see the rings, you can appreciate what the planet looks like. The scene conditions for this particular image are actually better, a little bit better than last year. And I'm going to focus you on a few things just to have a look at here more so. Right across here, you see this dark ring here? Everybody see that okay? Do you see that white dot here and a white dot here? It's fairly subtle. Those are storms. Wow. Not easy to capture. But yeah, and this little dot here is the moon of Thetis, right here. Like to capture this level of detail, first of all, the thing has to be quite good. I'm not going to lie to you and say you can just go out there and shoot it and you're going to capture this kind of detail no matter when it is. You have to wait for good scene conditions. Planetary imaging is a matter of persistence and patience. You need both to make it work. You can't rush it. You just be patient. Don't expect miracles. It takes time. I've been doing this for a number of years now. Now, one thing I really thought would be interesting to show you. This section of rings look different than this section of rings. This is the A ring. This is the A ring. You notice that this area here looks a little bit different than this one. These are ring spokes. This is super cool. It's the first time I've actually built images, and it's happening primarily this year. A lot of imagers are capturing this time of year. These have been documented way back from the times of Voyager 1, Voyager 2. And NASA believes they're caused by levitating dust particles that interact with Saturn's magnetic field. And they're only visible in eight-year periods, and when their rings are tilted less than 20 degrees, which they are right now. So their tilt is around 11 degrees for a tilt. So that is the secret, but it's just so cool. Like, I know some people that have actually been able to see this through their eyepiece. This is not only a photographic thing. If your scene conditions are good, by all means do it. Saturn rises to peak position at 4:30 in the morning. The good news is you get to work a lot earlier. It's really quite cool. The thing is good. This is the time to do it, folks. If you would like to observe it, studying Saturn, if you'd like to try to image it, it's a really good time to do it. And yeah, so I think that's really all I wanted to talk to you about with this image today. I'm going to leave you with one more though. And this is a 10-image animation where you can see rotation of the storms, or pardon the ring spokes as they move through. Because they circle around with the rings. Rings are always moving, and you can see that just moving there. So I've given you another tool in your belt to try to image Saturn. Give it a whirl with the eye on. Do you have any questions for me? Michelle, yes.
So take an IR, you take a color.
Yep.
You have to derotate, you have a certain amount of time before you can't combine them. Like-
No, actually, the way, the color, the color image from you, Michelle, it's just a color. You actually only need one image. You don't have to worry, honestly, this, when you superimpose the IR, it governs the image. And that's it, and you can control the opacity of that blend. If you want to see like a lot of detail, you want something more subtle, you can control that with your layer. But yeah, good question. Anything else?
Just one more question.
Yes.
I presume doing that in Jupiter will be much harder as it rotates quicker.
Jupiter does, but thanks to the, actually, because the details are so much easier to render an image and resolve on Jupiter. I don't know anybody that's doing this IR in that color integration. It's only because Saturn is so difficult to render surface details that you need to have the IR as part of that component. But yeah, Jupiter is a snapped image compared to Saturn. Saturn is immensely more difficult to render any kind of details. A lot more difficult.
Are you using any of the filters, methane or anything like that?
You know what? I haven't done methane, but some of the really serious amateurs that are into like studying Saturn are using methane. They only use methane and they use IR. That's all they don't bother the color. And but by doing that though, they study different storms, they monitor them, and they're actually being like these organizations are monitored by NASA. So they really look at these images and they chart it and they use it as part of their research papers. It's pretty cool.
It's great, Mike. Saturn's not a hard thing to look at. I think it's one of the things that most amateurs, when they first get involved in astronomy, get swept away by, is the first time you see Saturn anything. Eyepiece solid.
And can I make a little suggestion? Right. When you're looking at Saturn, see the eyepiece. Pardon me. Look at it for more than 5 minutes. Really study it. Otherwise, you're just peeking. You're really, again, persistence and patience. Whether you're imaging it, whether you're studying it visually, take your time with it. Don't rush it. It's a beautiful planet to see. Okay, thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, everyone, that brings us to our break a bit earlier than planned, but Mike will go from 8 o'clock roughly now. We'll go for about 20 minutes. That works. So be back in your chairs, ready to go about 8:20. And then we're going to hear from our main speaker, Gordon Toy. All right. Well, thanks everyone. We're gonna get going with Gord, our main speaker pretty soon. Gord is a avid variable star observer, telescope maker, also yes, who have known Gord for a long time. And he talks about chip lab, polishing years for many years, building large impressive telescopes in his yard. And a builder of robotic observatories.
Turn report on.
The Gord is a member of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, the Winnipeg Centre, for more than 40 years. I mean, he's always joined when he was 6.
Yeah, 16.
60. Well,
Actually, no, I see.
has served with the Centre in a variety of volunteer leadership roles, including newsletter editor, webmaster, vice president, and currently is secretary. Professionally, Gord has spent his career in software development and technology leadership, working across the manufacturing, transportation, government, healthcare, and education sectors. For the past 15 years, he served as an ICT director for the medical school division. Astronomy and technology. It's a technology strategy that develops innovative solutions for cybersecurity, systems integration, and artificial intelligence, digital conflict development. Combining his passions for astronomy and technology, Gord has designed and constructed several robotic observatories to develop software and AI-powered tools that support astronomical observing, automation, and education. He's particularly interested in applying modern computing technologies to make astronomy more accessible and productive for both amateur astronomers and researchers. So join me in welcoming Gord for tonight's main presentation. Okay, so can everybody hear me? Yeah, yeah. So we're having a discussion that this microphone is what feeds the Zoom, and these microphones are what feed the speakers, and we want both to be able to hear me. So can everybody hear me online? And I assume somebody's watching the chat. So I was going to wander around, I usually do, but we're all good? Okay. All righty. So, artificial intelligence in astronomy. You'll notice a theme. A bit of a theme in this talk is AI is stupid. As a matter of fact, I try not to use the AI term, but I have to. But yeah, this is what Copilot, which is Microsoft's flavor of AI, thinks an automated telescope looks like. No. So, artificial intelligence has really permeated pretty much everything. The pros are using it very extensively, but it's really starting to hit our horizons as well. So we're going to talk about both what the professionals do, as well as what we can do with it, and some new products that are coming out that are actually integrating it, plus some of my own projects, and talk a little bit about software development with AI. Way back when in the 80s, when I was 16, we used to have people in the club that would write programs on Apple II, and we'd share disks and do all that. You're too young for that.
You're not.
So that's kind of fallen off by the wayside, but it's starting to come back because we have tools now that enable people that don't really know how to program to actually generate programs to do things. And I'll show you an example of that, so we won't get too far ahead. So what is AI? So here he is. So this guy's name is John McCarthy, just back from the hairdresser, clearly. He's assistant professor of mathematics at Dartmouth University, which also brought us BASIC. So he introduced AI as a way to utilize language, develop abstractions and concepts, tackle problems typically reserved for humans, and enhance its own performance. Very professorish kind of definition. But what AI really means is we're trying to create computer software and systems that will reason like a human being and solve problems as well or better than people, right? So we've got a couple of flavors of AI, and this is really, really important because a lot of people don't understand the difference and tend to say that we're talking about something we're not. So narrow or weak AI is using computers and training them to do certain tasks so they can act and make decisions as if they were a person with cognition, right? But they don't have cognition. So narrow AI or weak AI is a tool that we have right now. Now, in fiction, HAL 9000 is a good example. Yeah, he really worked out well, right? So people say, "Oh, he was an AI." No, he was definitely a chatbot, right? He was ChatGPT 9000. So we've also got general AI or strong AI, which is actually has cognition. That is science fiction right now. We don't actually have it, right? I saw a video not too long ago where the guy in charge of general artificial intelligence at Google said, yes, we have it, but he redefined general AI to lower the bar so far that his products would get past it, right? We don't have artificial general intelligence. A guy named Steve Wozniak, who's a hero of mine, I'm also dating myself, he created the Apple II computer. He said, we'll have strong AI when an AI can go into a stranger's kitchen and make me a cup of coffee, right? I'm not even sure I would use that definition, but do not confuse weak AI with strong AI. And as a matter of fact, I like to call AI emulated intelligence versus artificial intelligence. We're emulating intelligence with some clever tools.
And essentially, we have a number of terms that we can use for different kind of cuts of this bubble. So AI is a general term for making things that require intelligence, if done by humans. Now, machine learning, which we'll go into some detail about, is tools to make computers learn from data and repeated training to improve performance for some tasks. Deep learning is giving it a humongous amount of data, so it is much more general purpose. So that would be your large language models and ChatGPT and Claude and that sort of thing. Those are deep learning tools. And some of these tools are generative. In other words, they make stuff up, right? Hopefully fairly accurate, maybe not. And then predictive AI is supposed to be deterministic, right? You're supposed to get the same answer every time you run it. Large language models like ChatGPT are non-deterministic, so you may get a different answer every time you ask it something, slightly different. And a lot of work goes into making software that are talking to these large language models, so they're a little smarter. And I've actually been building a large language model client for astronomy, and I spend most of my time trying to make the large language model not do the stupid things, right? And feed it data in a certain way so that it's not doing stupid things. So large language models, like I say, ChatGPT, huge models with billions of parameters. So does anybody remember a piece of software called ELIZA? Some oldsters may. It was a piece of software which basically said, "Hi, what's your name?" "Gord." "Hello, Gord, how are you today?" "I'm feeling sad." Okay, it's got if, the word feeling, and then, okay, why are you feeling sad, Gord? Right? So those are what we would call parameters, right? So ELIZA maybe had 10 parameters, right? The new models have 100 billion parameters. That's why they seem smarter, right? So the way these things work is it'll catch up eventually, right? We're giving this a prompt, right? We're giving a large ChatGPT, say. We're giving it a prompt. Give me some ideas for what to do when visiting Santiago, right? What happens is the computer will translate that prompt into something called a vector of numbers, right? It'll actually, and I'm forgetting the word. It'll tokenize. There we go. It'll tokenize that sentence into numbers, because all of these things are very large number crunching machines. They're using linear algebra and statistics. Sorry if you're getting flashbacks from university, but those two things are heavily used by large language models because they translate your query into a set of numbers. And not only that, they pass your entire conversation translated into numbers to the large language model every time. So if you ask it a question, it'll pass that to the large language model, it'll crunch the numbers, and then it'll give you a response. The next time you send it something, it'll send the entire previous conversation, and it'll crunch the numbers, and it'll send it back, right? It's called a context window, which is a term you might hear if you're into AI. So context windows have got very large, like context windows now are like 600 pages of text, right? So these conversations also include a whole bunch of background information to make these things work. So basically they translate these things into a bunch of numbers. They feed it into this giant matrix of numbers. All sorts of algorithms now calculate the probability of what the next word should be. You notice how it's kind of jerky when it's responding to you? It's actually calculating what the right next word would be. Now, this is a little simplistic because you notice that sometimes it doesn't pick the number one option. That's because there's a lot of other rules around it. And we won't talk about those because people's heads will explode. But That's basically how these things work. So if you're afraid that these things are sitting at night when people aren't talking to them, plotting to take over the world, they're not doing that. They're just consuming heat or just generating heat, consuming water, all that kind of stuff. We don't have any sound, or this would be much more impressive. I'll do it. Danger, Will Robinson, danger. So large language models and other generative AI are goal-seeking probabilistic engines, right? They're not people, they're not smart, they don't think, so they tend to make stuff up so they can meet their targets. Some are better than others, right? If there's a lot of parameters, very large models, then it'll be better than really models that are really small, right? So they make stuff up. It's called hallucinating. And you see it every day when I'm working with these little models on my computer because they make stuff up, right? And, you know, I ask it, tell me about RASC Winnipeg, and it makes a bunch of stuff up, fake websites, you know, whole organizations that don't exist just because it sounds plausible. So don't ever assume an AI is correct.
Gord,
Yo.
can you tell the audience how to get your chatbot to stop hallucinating?
To stop what?
Hallucinating.
You can't.
I'm sure you can. You can, or at least you can try.
You can try. You can give it better prompts.
Yeah.
Right? You can do prompt engineering. Most people don't. So what I'm saying is assume that it's wrong and verify independently what it's telling you. So I'm glad no one is running out the door to revamp the retirement savings plans that ChatGPT told them to invest into SpaceX or something, right? Never rely on AI. Right. Never rely on AI to give you proper information. Now, these tools are useful. Crap. And this video plays. Now, this is machine learning. This is a tool that I built a while back called machine learning cloud detection. Right? I have a camera at home. It points straight up all day, 24/7, 365. And what I wanted to do is say, I have an observatory where it can open and close the roof, depending if it's cloudy or if it's raining. It doesn't open the roof, right? So what I did is I trained a model to tell whether or not it's cloudy or not, right? So this is it actually running. And you'll see at the bottom corner here, well, it's daytime, right? So let it roll here. And now you see as things change, that's good, it's going like it's in slow motion. You'll see the roof is open because it's clear. Oh, okay, it's jumping. Roof is open because it's clear, roof is closed because it's not clear. This is the moon, by the way. Mode. So what it does is it looks at a large model of a whole bunch of examples of whether it's the cloudy or not, and it can figure out whether or not to open the roof of the observatory. There's a 5-minute delay, so that if there a cloud rolls through, it doesn't close the roof, right? And then open it again because it's actually clear. So this works really well. So how did I train it? I'll stop looking at that because it's lagging behind this. There's a tool from Google called Teachable Machine with google.com that actually allows you to generate these models. So if you wanted to generate, for example, a database that will detect the kind of flower a picture is, or detect the kind of rock a picture is, you see these tools online, right? This is the technology they're using to generate these things. Obviously, they're giving them a lot more pictures, right? All I care about is open or close, cloudy, not cloudy, right? I have another way to do rain because it's too slow to do rain. So I have a rain detector that'll shut everything out, close the roof right away without waiting for this to figure out whether it's rain. But you can, I set it up initially to do rain and snow and everything else that worked just great. So the result of this model is the output is if it sees a picture that it knows is not cloudy, it will return not cloudy. If it's sort of cloudy, maybe a little, it'll give you a probability percentage and all the way to fully cloudy, right? So that's the result. And these engines, it actually gives you a script that you can run in Python, which is a very common programming language for AI and for everything, for astronomy particularly. Gives you a little script in Python, which will say, here's a file, compare it against the model, and I'll put a result, right? Super simple. And a great way to get started with machine learning. So teachable machine at Google.com. So, okay, don't use animated slide transitions, clearly. So now what's happening, many amateurs and software developers are using machine learning techniques to provide AI-based, EI, whatever, based algorithms to improve astrophotos. Now, these are taking your astrophotos and improving them, right? It's not creating new ones. We'll talk about that in a sec. Things from Luminar, Topaz Labs, StarNet++, all of these tools, the ZWO has it in the C-Star to do a denoising, right? All of these tools are machine learning based tools, which are fairly easy to create and generate and use. So you're seeing a lot of products use them. This is good, not bad AI, good AI, right? So you want to use these tools because they'll improve your photos without changing them into something completely different. New product just coming out. There is StellarMate, is a company out of Kuwait. They're creating the first AI guider software. Now, StellarMate already has a very sophisticated guide software built into it. Now they're using machine learning to learn what guiding errors look like, and they're using machine learning to be able to get a much better guiding performance out of your guiding system. So StellarMate is releasing that. Actually, I think it just came out. This is a month or two old. So StellarMate is an appliance that you can buy, or you can put it on a Raspberry Pi. You can get it as an operating system. Put it on a Raspberry Pi. It's great. So now bad AI. There we go. So this is an absolutely amazing image of the space station, right? The International Space Station. It's amazing how somebody could get that good an image, right? This is an AI generated fake image with the same composition that has improved the original image. It is not the original image. It is created from probably a bajillion images of the space station that the AI was trained on. So what's really maddening is when you go on Facebook particularly, and somebody posts an absolutely gorgeous picture of M42 or one of the nebulas and said, I processed this through ChatGPT. And then they wonder why they're mocked mercilessly, right? Because they didn't process it through ChatGPT. They gave ChatGPT an image and it created a new image with the same composition as the old one, but it could come from Hubble data. It could come from any number of different sources. It has nothing to do with the original image, right? And this one also has nothing to do with the original image. It's just a fake. Why bother making a fake? Just go download an image of M42, right? Here's another one. And this is good. This is for Mike. So here we have a really good Mike Caracas quality Mars shot, and then we have an AI image of Mars which has been generated from a large language model. Not the same image. It has not been enhanced. It has been replaced. Right? So this is something you're seeing more and more of, and it's getting a little nuts on social media, especially when there's an event. Right? You see a lot of this kind of stuff. It's called AI slop. It's generated by AI. It's not real. It's not even close to real. It is, this may look like the backside of the moon a little bit, but it is not an image of the backside of the moon, right? And some of these are very fanciful, right? This is all completely made up. And when you see somebody talking about planetary alignments, you're talking about events in the sky, meteor showers with all these fantastic, amazing pictures, they're generally not real, right? And it's like the front of a telescope box in a department store. It ain't ever going to look like that, right? So this is a particularly egregious purveyor of this stuff. Secrets of the universe. The AI generated slop on YouTube is monumental. It is amazing how much garbage is produced by AI on YouTube and other social media simply to get clicks, and they make money. Right? They steal other people's content and AIify it. They do all sorts of things. Like there's a guitar review site where they basically grafted a different face on the guy and reposted it, and they're making money from it, right? So it's sad, but unfortunately, it makes people a lot of money, and it's going to continue. So you need to be able to discern the AI slop from what's real, and it's not that easy. So, what are the pros using it for? Thank you. You'll notice in all of my slides that where it matters, I've got a little kind of reference down at the bottom. This is a great video that expands upon all this, right? But has anybody ever done Galaxy Zoo? So Galaxy Zoo, yeah, I know you would have. I did. I'm a nerd, right? Galaxy Zoo was an initiative, a citizen science initiative where you signed up. They trained you on how to recognize different types of galaxies, like spiral galaxies and barred spirals and elliptical. And then once you'd been trained, they gave you a whole bunch of pictures and you classified the galaxies. And you said, as best you could, because some of them are kind of fuzzy and hard to see, a whole bunch of people doing this will average out to fairly accurate, right? The next thing you do is you give that to a machine learning model, right? So everybody has created your input data for your machine learning model, and now your machine learning model quite happily can classify galaxies. So you're going to see a lot more of these citizen science initiatives where people are creating the inputs to machine learning models, and that's good, right? Because scientists use these models in their work. Right? They want to classify data. So they want to know what is this, right? If they have a machine learning model which has been trained to recognize things, it can very quickly tell them what they're about. If you've got a model that knows what a galaxy is supposed to look like, and you give it a picture of a galaxy with a supernova in it, it's going to tell you there's an anomaly in this picture. As a matter of fact, our next set of slides, that's very heavily used by the Rubin telescope, right? They use it to infer things about data, right? So if you get a very large data set and you have a theory as to what it might be, you can use an inference engine to try to tease out patterns within that data, right? And if you can't get data that's classified, well, you create a theoretical model of what it should look like. You train a model on that, and then you send it out looking for those patterns, right? So emulation of simulations is essentially creating simulations which will then be used to train models, right? So where that actually, the rubber hits the road on things like the Vera C. Rubin Observatory. Just started operation. Where is it? South America, Chile, probably. So Vera C. Rubin has a 8.4 meter main mirror, f1.234. I wonder if that was on purpose, right? So that is like a short focal length, which is why it's so stubby. So it's 8 meters wide and 8 meters tall, basically, right? Very fast slewing. It settled a 4-second fast slew and slid along an adjacent field. So this thing goes zoop, 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 and takes pictures with a camera that's the size of a Volkswagen, right? This camera, 3.2 gigapixels, 3.5 degree field of view, very wide field of view, 6 filters, cool filters. If you see videos of the filters, they're like curtains, right? They're huge. It's huge, right? So what this telescope generates is 6.4 gigabytes per exposure. So if you're taking exposures with 6 filters, 6 exposures for one field, right? You're generating 20 terabytes of data per night because you're probably taking a bunch of pictures and stacking them, right? Just like we do. So 20 terabytes. A terabyte is 1,000 gigabytes, which is 1,000 megabytes, right? So a terabyte. We buy disks that are like 5 terabytes, right? This is per night, right? 4 times, like I have a 5 terabyte disk on my, my first computer had 126K, right?
Yeah.
So 20 terabytes, 10-year data set of 6 million times 6.4, 15 petabytes, which is 1024 terabytes, right? It's lots of data. So we're not going to hire, Henrietta, what's her face, to go through these and on a blink comparator like plates and figure stuff out whether there's an anomaly. It's just simply not possible. Henrietta, do it. No, okay. So this has to be automated, and the way they're automating it is with machine learning models, right? So a couple of things they're doing. Their adaptive optics system, which is a laser pointed at the sky, figures out what the scintillation of the air is, and it wiggles a little mirror to match that scintillation. So adaptive optics have enabled ground-based telescopes to achieve resolutions rivaling space-based telescopes. That's why there are still ground-based telescopes. Otherwise, they'd be useless, right? But ground-based telescopes with adaptive optics have become really, really good. So they have a deep learning model to correct alignment of adaptive optics mirrors due to gravity and temperature gradients. So they've learned that what happens to a mirror if the temperature changes, because the shape of the mirror changes with temperature, and gravity. Glass is essentially a liquid, very viscous liquid, right? But it's essentially a liquid, and it changes shape based on gravity and temperature, right? So they've got a machine learning model to figure that out. A Louvre optimization, did I spell that right? Louvre? Essentially, they've got louvers that open and close in the observatory to manage airflow. And it's very important to do that because turbulent air will impact the resolution of the telescope. Feature-based scheduler, AI-based scheduling system, alert production. So they process these terabytes of images every night, and they send out alerts for anomalies, right? I don't know if you've seen the images of the first tests where they were showing the tracks of asteroids. It looked like an anthill, right? It was amazing how many objects they were detecting, and that animation showed you them traveling through space. So they detected some sort of anomaly, a gradient, a big flash of light, and they can detect that, and they can send a notification out, probably via email, to astronomers who can go look and figure out and then go look at the data and figure out what it was. So, and there are people who are looking specifically for certain type of anomalies. You've got convolutional neural networks that are used to reduce false positives. Convolutional neural networks are how sort of AI works, and it's just sort of mapping on to computers what your brain does with neurons, right? Convolutional networks just put filters in front of those, so only certain things can get through, and it's a way to filter things out so you don't see those kind of false positives. And of course, they've got a friendly chatbot for community support, which uses a protocol called RAG. Boy, I'm not really good at acronyms when I'm standing up here, right? Retrieval augmented generation, that's what it's called. And basically, it's a way for it to look up stuff like in a book. So it's like a library of books that the AI can search, right? So when I built the AI, I created a RAG database that included stuff about RASC and stuff about variable stars and stuff about telescope making and a whole bunch of books I had digitally. I stuffed them in there, it read them all, and now it can answer questions, right? So RAG is a very useful tool. So that's Ruben. So that's probably the shiniest telescope to come online, and it's got a crap ton of AI in it. You want to know a little more? The April 2026 issue of Sky and Telescope had a nice article on that. This site is also very good, skyinstitute.org. And we are recording this, so yeah, you'll be able to get these things from the recording. Very good site. How am I doing for time? Good. Yeah. See, the problem is Judy asked me to do this probably 6 months ago, and I started work on it, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and longer. So we're here till like a big part of what I do is a oops. Okay, now give the router a kick. So what this is a tool called Visual Studio Code, right? And we're writing a little Python program here. And what it can do is you can ask it, it's not working, could you fix it? And it will go and it will actually figure out what's wrong and generate the right code. And then you can push a button, it'll insert it into your code. Great, right? Used to be you'd have to ask it, generate me some code that does this, and then you'd have to cut and paste it into your code. No more. These agentic AI tools are making life really easy. Unfortunately, they're making life really easy for old guys like me, who are essentially software designers, who used to hire a whole bunch of programmers to work for me. And they would write the code. I would tell them what to write, and they would write all the code, bring it back, and we review it and critique it. I don't need those guys anymore. So there's a bit of a problem at the kind of entry level in computers that they need to teach these kids to design and look at systems holistically the way old guys do, who've been doing it for 40 years. That's a bit of a challenge, right? Because here's an example, and this is an example that's probably useful to somebody like you who are an astronomer, and you might want to know, if I can read this, how to build a Python program to calculate the next, something's over top of it on my screen, calculate the next 10 dates at local times when Saturn is transiting the meridian at an altitude higher than 30 degrees from Winnipeg's latitudes, create a virtual environment and fix any problems that you see. So you're prompting the large language model to generate code to tell me when is Saturn up in the sky highest, what dates and times is it highest in the sky, which is when it passes the meridian in the south, right? So it goes over and it's at its highest point due south, right? So that was not the thing to do. Back up. There we go. So type this in. Okay, thinking, working. Interesting problem, Gord. How should I fix this? Well, let me break this down. I'll create a to-do list. That's okay. I know I have these tools and that sort of thing. Bingo, bango, bongo. I never time this right. Oh, it's on my screen. Yeah, there we go. It generates a Python program which will calculate when Saturn is transiting and where it is. And I also said create a virtual environment, which kind of creates a little sandbox. It keeps it separate from everything else, and fix any problems you might have. So it prompts me, okay, if I create a sandbox, yes. Okay, if I run the program, yes. Right? It downloads the libraries it needs to do these calculations, because you don't write that by yourself anymore. You download a library that provides it to you, right? Okay, if I run this, yes, allow. And the library downloads an ephemeris from Jet Propulsion Laboratory. So ephemeris tells you what all the orbital elements of the planets are, so you can calculate where they go. So it runs it and gets the dreaded purple text. Error. So what happens? Well, oh, I see the issue. This ephemeris doesn't include Saturn. Okay, well, I'll change the code. I'll download a different ephemeris, and now it provides you with the data. And it's correct. Good check. So if you are wondering when Saturn will be best placed to view, this is a great opportunity for you to be able to generate that information very easily. Oh, wow. This is a really big laptop. It's really a pig, so I'm just going to get the power adapter here. From a company called Anthropic is probably most programmers. The surveys I've seen of many programmers use Claude. It really works well. I have tried the new one, which is called Fable, and it works really well. But you have to pay Anthropic money to use it. So the more capable the model, the more you pay, right? So now you can get this functionality very cheaply, or I think there's kind of a free version to it. It's kind of the first hit is free, right? So they'll give you a model that'll, you know, if you're not doing it all day, why do you need to pay for it, right? I pay $100 a year for this. It's super cheap. Recently, they started throttling my access, so I had to pay $300 a year at work, right? Because I do it all day at work to get access to Claude to do this kind of work, right? So this kind of coding is called vibe coding, and it's not generally the way professional people code, but it is good for home use, because what you can do is you can basically create software on demand. So for example, I had a whole bunch of credits left at a thing called iTelescope, which is remote access telescope, right? I had a bunch of credits, so I figured I'd do some variable star observing, which is what I do, right? Pretty boring. It's just star field, but that's what I do. So I said, well, you know what? Usually what I do is I go to this giant spreadsheet that the American Association of Variable Star Observers have created, and I pick a whole bunch of stars to look at, and I create a little script, upload it to iTelescopes, and then at 3 in the morning, it executes my script, takes pictures, and then I download them. So I figured, fun thing to do, let's get the AI to generate some code to do it. So the AI generated something based on this prompt, right? and you're basically explaining exactly what it needs to do. We're going to build a graphical tool that allows us to download the target tool list from AAVSO under a view variable list and select targets and add to a targets view. User will need to be able to set information about the telescope and observing locations. Results should be an ordered list of targets sorted by right ascension that can be exported as an iTelescope script. Here's an example script. And here's a website that tells you how to write scripts. Right? So it went away and it taught for a long time. And here's what it created. So essentially, it pulls from these lists, and these are the different categories that you can look at, right? You can search for a particular star. AG Draco is my favorite variable star. I've also got TCRB, which is the one that needs to blow up, or we're going to get really angry at sometime in the near future. So these are variable stars that I want to observe. So what it does is it allows me to select stars from these lists, you know, search various lists, and then it'll create a script. And I can download that script, upload it to iTelescope, and Bob's your uncle, I'll get my images. So never being one to leave things alone. So that was generated immediately, working, looked great, right? I was actually surprised it wasn't messed up in some way. So then I decided, I'll actually show you the running code here. There it is. Boom. Then I decided I wanted to be able to download my images from my telescope, right? So I wrote a little thing. No, I wrote a prompt that told it, I want to download these images and I want to download them via FTP from this website, data.itelescope.net. It's FTP. Here's my username and password. Here's where you download it to. And it'll download all my images for me. It contacts iTelescope, scans through all my folders on iTelescope, and I've already downloaded them because there's nothing more boring than watching lines go like this, right? Okay, you can stop now. Oh, it's waiting. Okay, there we go. Now I said, well, wouldn't it be cool if I could just actually look at my images for AG Draco on that date and do my processing and determination of how bright it is. That's what variable star observing is. You estimate the brightness of a star, which varies over time, right? So we have all these images. We take 4 in each filter. So we got a V filter. And I said, well, I need to stack them. So I told it to create a stack thing, a photometric stack with no clipping and all that kind of stuff. So you sort of have to know your subject matter, right? So, and then give me a tool to actually provide the analysis. And what it does is, I should have showed you the star field. It's just a star field, right? And there's a star in the middle, and that's your variable star. And it's a certain brightness. There's also stars around it, which are comparable brightnesses. And what variable star photometry does, you take a picture and it compares the brightnesses of all the stars around it to derive a brightness for the star that you're interested in. Well, differential photometry, right? And it used to be a colossal pain in the butt to actually process these images. Now it's easy. So here's my brightness, 9.83 magnitude with a error of 0.013 magnitude, which is pretty good. So the steps it takes, and I have to admit that the code to do the photometry I'd already written, so I gave it a bit of a head start on that, right? So this log here tells you what it did. It found the target coordinates, it found the comparison stars, it looked at the image to see where the stars were that it was interested in. It analyzed the brightnesses of those, it put them on a line so it could calculate the error, and it provided a result, right? Now that result, it also allows me to plot it on a light curve, which is what we want. Now this is 365 days of people measuring this star, right? And you'll notice there was a bit of a increase in its magnitude, and now it's back bumping along in quiescence. And there's my measurement, right? So photometry is a very tedious thing to do when you're doing it manually. It's much nicer when you get the computer to do it for you. And I've been working on this software literally for years in my head, right? So I had the design, I just didn't have the time to create something like this. So now I created it probably 3 or 4 hours to create this. Software on demand. So imagine if you had a problem that you needed some software to solve, right? Create it. So it's not magic. I should hasten to point out, this is where I start backpedaling, right? It's not magic. If you start getting really, really large applications, AI has no idea how to do it properly as far as structuring it and setting it up properly so that it is easy to maintain, right? And this application here called Astrofiler, which you've seen before if you've been to the meetings, Astrofiler was my first only use AI for this application. 99%, right? Because I wanted to see what it would do. And characteristically, it went nuts and created monsters, right? That I had to manually fix. It created programs that were so huge they didn't fit in the context window, and I had to manually split them up, right? So I learned a lot about what AI is not capable of doing. Now, if I tried it again with the newer models, it would be much better, right? But my advice, if you do want to try making larger applications to do more complex things, is you have to stop once in a while and say, is this application conforming to generally accepted programming principles, right? Is it being structured that it would make it, easy to maintain? Because the AI will go analyze that for you. It'll say, oh yeah, well, in accordance with the PEP standard, this actually needs to do this and this. Here, let me create a checklist of all the things that needs to be done. Would you like me to execute that now? Okay, right? So it's not the end of the world, but the difference between a vibe coder, a guy that's been doing this for 40 years, is, at the end of the day, if you don't pay attention to these things, it's going to be horrible, right? And you see a lot of this stuff posted on Cloudy Nights, which is an online forum. People post they're proud of this application, which is 5,000 lines long and includes all the installation code inside the program. It's just monstrous, right? You can tell it was AI generated by a non-programmer. So, but a little bit of attention allows you to get something that's quite presentable. So this is an Astrofiler, right? Oh, where did it go? Do that. There. So basically, Astrofiler imports, I should go back to my presentation here. So FITS file, as I told you a few months ago, sorry if you were here, a FITS file is what generally your camera on your telescope should be taking images with. It's a file format. It's like JPEG or GIF or, file format. The difference is there's a header on a FITS file which includes metadata about the image. It'll tell you everything you need to know about what's in the image, when it was taken, what the exposure was, what the telescope was, what the camera was, all of that stuff is preserved in the header. And what the program does, Astrofiler, is it reads that header and creates a database of the information within. Easy, right? So all of the scientific images and data, all the metadata, all of the stuff that you need to use is all stored in a database, so you can sort it, you can mess around with it. Here's some examples of the metadata.
Right here.
Okay, what's in a FITS header? So it'd be like your, oh, there it is, okay. So it'd be like your object right ascension, object declination, what the object name is, the telescope you use, the observer, you know, if you've got an offset, any pedestal that is used for processing it, what side the telescope was on the pier. It records a ton of information which can be useful in processing your stuff. So what Astrofiler does is it reads those files, creates a database, and then allows you to manipulate that information, sort things. If you've got a telescope that has 4 different names in your FITS files, you can tell it, okay, the Celestron F10 should be called a C8. The Celestron F10 2032 should be C8, right? So it allows you to standardize everything. It also moves the files physically into a structure which is very intelligent. So, yeah.
Is it SQL database or just file? Is it SQL or file based?
It's Postgres. The database
Okay.
is Postgres. No, I'm sorry, it's SQL. Wrong application. But the FITS files are not moved into a database. They stay as files on disk, because the point is that you can find things really easy when you're loading it into your processing application if it's in an intelligent structure, right? So I'm looking for N45 images, and here's the date I took them. And here's the exposure and the filter and the temperature, you know, all that sort of stuff. Index.
They're using something like an index then. Find it.
Yes, so I'll show you that. So it allows you to map, eliminates duplicates, which is a big problem. Compresses the images, so your 40 megabyte FITS file can be 12 megabytes. Matches light frames with calibration frames. So if you're taking images and you're taking dark frames and flat frames and bias frames, it matches them together and treats them as a group, right? Which is a real problem when you got a lot of images. Allows you to back them up to the cloud, and you can export this in the correct structure into Cyril format so you can process it with Cyril. Okay. And I'm not going to show you too much of this, but this is M101. Boy, that's really small. Lucky I thought of that. Font size. Oh, let's just go nuts. It's 24. I might have to restart it. I'll restart it. Yo, you have to speak loud because I'm deaf.
Is the application AI enabled or?
No. There's no reason for it to be. If there is a reason for AI enablement, that carries a tremendous amount of infrastructure requirements. Like at work, my day job, we're building applications that are self-healing, which means it watches the logs for errors. And if an error, it creates a ticket in our ticketing system. Another agent goes and picks it up and looks at the error and provides a recommendation on how to fix it. And then I say yes, and it goes and fixes it, right? That requires $8,200 server running a fairly large model that, you can't run a little model that'll run on a laptop. It needs to be a big model, and that pulls in a huge amount of infrastructure that's inappropriate for this kind of.
We just use AI.
Sorry, I missed most of that.
It was just a comment. I was wondering whether the program was AI enabled or it just use AI to create it.
I built it with AI.
Yeah.
There's no reason, it's an algorithmic process that doesn't need any sort of machine learning at this point. Who knows? Right?
Yeah.
But the important thing is that the tooling is available for you to create applications like this without necessarily having to be a professional programmer, which is the point, right? So this is I'm not going to spend too much time. This is a whole bunch of images, especially since this takes a long time to show what I'm showing you. So here's a bunch of images. And if I double click on one of them, it opens up a viewer. So there's a picture of, looks like M101. Yeah. So I have a picture. This is, oh yeah, it's blank right now. Just hang on. Okay, there's a big picture of M101. This is a single light, right? So this is a 60-second exposure through a C8 of M101, right? It looks really bad because it's a single frame. It's noisy and it hasn't been, there's been no darks removed or flat supply, that sort of thing. So, but it stores this in a sensible structure so you can find it. But it also creates something called sessions. And those sessions actually are what draw together all of the darks and flats and stuff so that you can process them all. And actually, if you see, it'll actually, this one looks kind of bad, but it'll actually do a sample stack of your images and apply all your darks and flats and stuff. So you can see what it would sort of look like. The C8 never seemed to work really well with the monochrome camera for the code that works really well with C-stars. So this is probably a bad example. So there's lots of tools. This is a very large application and getting larger. So this is an example of something you can do. And if I had to do it manually, it just wouldn't have happened. Right? It's like a lot of stuff I have done at work where I've taken some scripts that have been just kind of built haphazardly over 15 years and created a monstrous, monumental interface engine. I wouldn't have dreamt of doing that unless AI was doing most of the work, right? So now, and AI generates really nice websites. So that's the astrofiler.com website, mostly AI generated with a little bit of help from me. So what's really cool as well is there was a guy that reported a bug. I have bugs in my code, but he said there's a crash that happens in a certain circumstances while it's working on different files. So he reported this on a site called GitHub, which is where programmers hang out, right? We post all our code to GitHub. You'll notice all my applications have GitHub addresses. Those are the repositories where all the code are, but it's also a way for you to report bugs. So one day I was looking at this and said, oh, okay. And I said, sorry for the delay at looking this. It looks like some sort of data issue. Then I noticed there was a button that all of a sudden appeared, assigned to Copilot. So I pushed it and Copilot fixed it. So within 11 minutes, the bug was fixed and presented to me to approve. I said yes, and it was committed to the repository. Oh, happy day. So saves an immense amount of time. Ticket. Well, created a ticket, but the AI fixes the ticket. That's what I'm trying to achieve at work too. No work, right? So I was going to, and I know we're running short on time probably. People want to get out of here. I was going to demonstrate something called AstroLlama. If you've used ChatGPT and stuff like this should be a sort of familiar format. So I created a chatbot, and it uses, what's interesting, it uses a local model. It doesn't go out to the internet. So none of my data goes to the internet, right? And this is a big deal at work, right? Because I cannot submit student, parent, employee, God forbid, medical information out to the internet, right? Not going to happen. So if we want to use any AI to help our employees in my school division where I work in a school division, to get information from our core systems, we need it to be within the sandbox. It needs to be within our security perimeter. So this is what sovereign AI is about. A lot of people are repatriating AI away from the internet into their own organizations so that they can be sure that it's not leaking information. And remember what I said, AI is dumb, right? So it's not swirling around in your data looking for stuff it can report back to the mothership in China. Or these days, it's more like we're worried about the States, right? So it's not taking your data and giving it to people. It's very, very, not easy, but it's very doable to really lock down your data when you have it all internally, right? So if you look, here's the address, GitHub, we're on Astrolama. You could download it if you like. If you're interested, here's what it looks like. You're getting tired. Yeah. So I asked it, oh, it has a really cool full screen, how many thousand? If you click on full screen visual, it'll go screen pulses, right? A lot of time spent on that, right? So, and voice. So it'll talk to you. So I asked it, what is a variable star? And I have given it a lot of information about variable stars because I'm into that, right? So it can give you a very credible, description of variable stars, right? If you want to know what a Cepheid variable is, it'll give you a very credible description of what a Cepheid variable is, right? ChatGPT will do the same thing, but this is internal. So this is only my stuff. So I also created a tool where I can ask it, what recent articles have been published on exoplanet atmospheres? So it goes out to the archive where people pre-publish papers, and it pulls a bunch of articles for me. So if I want to read up on anything, it just pulls it out for me, right? It can also retrieve and summarize a paper. So if I want to know what is in a paper, I say retrieve and summarize. I know this is really small. The archive paper, busy water ice in space. Seemed interesting, right? And it'll go retrieve the paper, read it, and then summarize it, right? Very handy. I hooked my telescope to it. Don't know why. It was cool. So my C-star, I can say register cstar.local as S30 using Alpaca, and it'll communicate to my C-star via Alpaca, and it'll slew it, and it'll track, and all that kind of good stuff. So it was very easy to create tools to do that, right? Which was the kind of the point, is experimentation. So it's very easy to get an AI to control your telescope. I'm just not sure why it would be useful, right? Instead of going into NIDA and saying, go here, right?
It would be useful if you could just talk to it. Say, how would I bother putting?
So do you talk to your computer?
Yeah.
You're very rare. That drives me nuts. Talking, no, actually what drives me nuts is waiting for it to tell me the result. Drives me nuts, right? So it's not, voice recognition is actually built into browsers now, so it's actually really easy to implement, but it drives me crazy. That, I implemented in this just for fun, but yeah, I don't use it because I'm tired of waiting, especially when it gives you 18 paragraphs of result, right? And it's reading variable stars or,
I tried to save my life. So recently I started talking to my AI.
I talked to Siri, how old is Wayne Gretzky, right? So yes, it has its place, but I unless you're in the observatory, and that's one of the reasons I created the visual mode, is if you're in the observatory and you're running it on an iPad and talking to it, Yeah, I can maybe see, but this is me telling it to take pictures. So move the telescope in 42 and take 10 times 10 seconds. And that rolls it for me. So it's pretty cool. And of course, it'll do normal stuff like generate code. Like somebody asked, can your program generate a Fortran program to load the JPL DE 405 data and the IAU SOFA routines? Like it was challenging. So sure, I'll ask it, and it generated the code. I haven't done Fortran since 1984. I don't think anybody should. That the language, if you think about the computer science program in 1984, they were teaching Fortran, which is a 50s language, COBOL, which is a 50s language, APL, which is 60s language, you know, and I was trying to get into microcomputers, right, with my Apple II. So
Did you have to do your programming on cards? Did you have to do your programming on cards?
yes.
Oh, maybe too.
So last slide, I swear, right? This is something, what I just showed you is available commercially in StellarMate. Like, it seems like Jassim Mutlak, who's the guy who wrote StellarMate, he's the maintainer for Indy, K-Stars, and ECOS, which is the Linux Macintosh version of Nina and ASCOM, right? He's kind of on a similar trajectory as me, except he has a company and makes money from it. I don't. So this is running on an iPad or Android, and basically it does the same things that I do on mine. He's integrated it with Indy so that it can take pictures and store them and do different things. So, and yes, you can talk to it. So,
Yeah. No.
so this is something that's obviously coming. So these little figurines will be available at the gift shop on the way out. It's Bobby somehow, right? Again, this is generative AI, but this is cute. Like you send it a picture of yourself and it generates. My whole family has pictures of themselves and stuff. So this is my contact information. If you want to get in touch or talk to me on general or one of the forums, my website is openastronomy.ca, which is kind of personal stuff. Open Astronomy, but Substack is long, boring technical documents about AI and telescopes and stuff. But if you're interested in that kind of stuff, thank you for listening. I'll let you have a question. Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
So, from what I'm seeing here, the future job market is not gonna be programming, it's gonna be designing. You can design something, a product, and it'll fix its own bugs, and you don't care about the language.
See, the pyramid of programmers traditionally has been you come out of school, you're a junior programmer, and you sit in a cubicle and you write some little tiny portion of a program. They throw you meat every once in a while, right? And you generate and then you go to these interminable code review meetings with your boss where they rip you to pieces, right? And then you eventually graduate to a programmer, and then to a programmer analyst who does a lot of the analysis and design type stuff, and then to an architect which does overall system design, right at the tip of the pyramid, right? So in my career, I ended up in programming. I'm not specifically a programmer these days as an architect. I'm certified architect, right? So I would design applications and then give them to people to code. Now I just design applications until the AI built, right? And obviously we have code reviews and all the kind of stuff we did. And if you look on my GitHub, you'll notice there's a papers section which has a very comprehensive sort of academic papers on how to do this properly, right? So there is a way you do it for real, right? In a software engineering sort of sense. And again, it kind of leaves out the junior programmers who are coming out of school And the problem is you need to be, all the guys who are architects are gray hairs. They're 10 years away from retirement, right? So they're all retiring. So we have I think we have a bit of a problem, right?
Advise them about jobs.
Well, you know, how do you teach somebody to design? Because a lot of it is experience, right? And knowing holistically systems and having seen a whole bunch of them. How do you, I don't know, it's a challenge for the academics to bring kids into the new age. My experience with university when I was there, universities don't go really quick. I hope they're better now, right? Because in the 80s, I was learning 60s stuff, right? You know, it was a big deal that one of the profs had an Apple II on a cart that he used to live around, right? So, yeah, it's a tough thing. The programming business is going to change dramatically, I think. So,
Thanks, Gordon. Any other questions for him? Well, this is for you.
oh,
On behalf of the
oh, thank you.
center, thank you very much. Yeah.
A dog seal of approval.
And of course, tomorrow is our members observing night at Glenley, weather permitting, I guess, regardless. Ed Wright is the host. And there'll be somebody at the in the warm room, regardless. Unless it's really bad, then we'll provide some warning on Facebook and on our website. That if you've actually chance to look at it, if it's overcast, there's always things to do and things to learn. Like that's oftentimes when we do dome training is when it's overcast. So I'm thinking about coming out. Let's hope for clear skies. I think it's supposed to be maybe wet until noon, and then it's supposed to clear up later. But keep an eye on it. There will be somebody there for planning to come out, but that's tomorrow night. And then of course we have our August 22nd support for the outreach session there. And then of course looking forward to our September 10th to 13th Sprucewood Star Party. So if you haven't got your registration in yet for Sprucewood Star Party, I mean it's coming up on a month away. It's time to register and get in there. So it's really simple now with the Eventbrite, and love to see you registered, see everybody out there. Anyway, that's all for tonight, and there's still some food over on the table there. Indulge and enjoy your evening and enjoy your weekend. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.